Okay. All right, guys. We'll begin the Panda session, right? So, as I've been telling you, NumPy. So, why do we have the different packages in Python, right? To implement some specific functions or some specific tasks in a optimized way, we have this packages. In the last two sessions, we've discussed about NumPy. NumPy, as I said, can do a lot of linear algebraic and matrix multiplications in a very faster way. We didn't do all of this, but we'll do in when we go to machine learning. The reason we do all this uh, for pandas is because we have a lot of data cleaning operations or data manging or whatever you say, but you have to manipulate this data frames specifically according to your need to get the insights or to visualize or to modify for modeling. All this is done with pandas, one of the very important package, right? Very vastly used package, right? Ideally this can be in terms of matrices only, but we call it data frames or tables. So today we will learn that the as NumPy has np.array as the fundamental object. In pandas, the fundamental object is data frame, which is indicated as pd.dataframe or pandas data frame, which has data, index, column, dtype, and copy. Right? So why we won't initialize data frame randomly, but we'll try to import data set and try to see. By the way, guys, we have already given a folder called end-to-end data set. Give me a moment. Hands-on, yeah. In the hands-on, there's a first thing called link to data sets. This is a folder which you can download directly. Okay, for all the folders, sorry, all the data sets which will be used in the entire course are given here. So please download this data set, sorry, this folder is there in course module. For the sake of convenience, I'm giving it again here in your chat. Please download the data sets from there. And after you download, the first things you do is the import statements. Import and as pd numpy as np. So both of them are built on numpy. Pandas is built on numpy. So it's ideally recommended to import both of them together. And the first statement you like to read is your pandas read statement, pd.read csv, which help you in csv files. And this particular thing is my path where I have kept my data sets. Okay, so it has got executed and I can check it by using df dot head. So please repeat this statement and download this data set called africancrisis.csv. And let me tell you, pandas is a lot of fun. I'm telling you, if you love it, you love it. So please start doing along with me. You can also import Titanic data set uh, is another famous popular data set people use. And when you do head, it appears something like this. Let me know once you are able to replicate it. Please open this live class tutorial in case you find any issues. So here it is always recommended to put the path, exact path where your data set is. You can put data set anywhere on the computer. As long as you give this path correctly, it should be fine. So I'll tell you the top 5 operations whenever you do the right? You load the data set. First of all, head gives the first 5 rows, and it kind of gives you the picture of what are the first 5 rows. You can open the Excel and you can see if they are the same 5 rows. By using 10 in the bracket or 15, you can load the first 10. I mean, by default, it will load only first 5 rows, but you can also load 10 rows also. Similarly, you have that Titanic tail. Tail is nothing but your last 10 rows. 890 is my last row, let's say. Tail of 5, last 5 rows. So head and tail are used to know what's the starting and what's the ending of your data set, right? The next thing you can also do is df. I'll be using both dot shape. That gives you how much long the data set is and how many rows are there. Titanic has 891 rows, 12 columns. African has 1059 rows and 14 columns. That's what it's saying. Shape, and of course you can do df dot. The next one is info. Okay. Info and parenthesis. This will give you the each column name and how Python is reading it as. Int 64, int. Python by default tries to understand what is there and assign an data type to it. You need not name passenger is int, survived is int, p class is int, and all. Right? Python by default comes up with such a thing. It might be correct, it might be wrong. It will also show you how much memory it's occupying, 83 KB. Info. And then you have finally head, tail is done. Describe, I'll tell you once. Info, of course, shape, columns. Columns is just you want to get the list. So df underscore Titanic dot columns will give you a list of column names. And finally df underscore Titanic dot describe is our favorite function. Try to see what is it giving to you. What is it giving to you? It's giving you count. How many are there? Mean, standard deviation, minimum value, maximum value, 25th quartile, 50th quartile, 75th quartile. Each of the columns. For every column, it will give you this number. With a single function, you get all the descriptive stats for all the columns individually. Clear? So try all these 5 on any of the data sets of your favorite. And by the way, here you don't get categorical columns. In case you want to get categorical also, you can do something in the bracket. You can do include is equal to all, and then you'll get categorical columns also. But for categorical columns, you don't have mean, median, mode. For them, you will get unique, top, and frequency of the top category. Okay. Bhaskar, you didn't name it as df underscore Titanic. You named it as something else. Use the exact name. Or else just share the screen once. Others keep trying this. The first 5. Anyone having issues? Share the screen. Huh. Just go above. You name it as DF. You didn't name it as DF underscore Titanic. So now go down. Just use DF dot describe. Yep. Run it. That's it. So variable name. Whatever you name in the earlier you should do it. What did I do? I transposed the matrix so that I can read easily. So whenever you load any data set, these are some things very essential which we will do it, right? To understand. Describe gives us a purview of how each column looks like, whereas other columns gives us size and shape of the data frame, right? So I hope you guys have done it on Titanic dataset. Read, view the dataset, check the dimensions, get the number of features. Number of features is nothing but number of columns, and the descriptive starts on the data. Right. The next thing we will look into it is slowly understand how to slice, how to cut, how to modify the data, and access the specific columns in a data frame. That's one thing we can do it here. So how to access specific columns? Let's say df, if I'm looking at df underscore Titanic dot head, right? These are my passenger ID, survived, P class, name, sex, age. This is the columns. For example, I need a smaller version of this data frame, df underscore path. Let's say 3 columns of Titanic. Let's say is equal to df underscore Titanic. What you can essentially do it is like take a square bracket, and inside the square bracket pass a list of column names. Then you'll be able to get what you want. So I will give passenger ID. Guys, be very careful with the column names, because most of the times even a small spelling mistake and the column names are not taken, because Python reads them in an exact way. To include the parent quotes as well, and then df underscore 3 underscore column dot head is what I'm calling. Passenger ID, it's already showing passenger ID is not there in the index. Okay, see, D is small, I gave capital letter and it's gone. Got it? So now the df underscore 3 underscore call is the new data frame. What did I do? Sliced the earlier data frame with some smaller number of columns. Not always you load the data set and you'll need all the columns in that. You can work with a subset of data. It may be requirement, and you can do it this way. There are other simpler many versions to do it. I'll teach you as we go. And if you want to have a look at a single column, For example, I am only interested in survivor class. Survivor. I can use a dot operator like this and enter. Then my column gets printed here. Or I can use dot operator might not be helpful every time. In that case, you can use a brackets, square brackets, and put the column name. Still, you will get it. By the way, even if you slice it, this is still a data frame. You can use the head on the column. That means you can also use shape. Every slice of a data frame is another data frame on itself. Sorry, shape doesn't have parentheses. It will show you 891. There is no column length here. That means it's one column data frame. The next thing is like, let's look at setting index first of all. Okay, let's do df of African crisis dot head. By the way, what is the index, guys? Here, what is index? How does Python remember all this? Index is nothing but this particular column here. This is our index. So if you don't give any specific index, Python default creates an index starting 0, 1, 2, 3. Just like NumPy has an index, list has an index, data frame also has an index like this. But sometimes you may need to change this index to some other variable. For example, in Titanic dataset, you have passenger ID. I want to put the index of the Titanic dataset as passenger ID. But ID here, the default index is starts with 0. I want to change it to passenger ID. In that case, I can do df of Titanic dot set underscore index, and you can pass the column name in the brackets passenger ID. Oh, sorry, again, small d. Okay. Just a moment, let me see if it has. No, it has not changed. Let me put df underscore Titanic. As I have told in some class, in earlier class, sometimes you have to assign the variable back, otherwise you don't get the changes reflected. So df underscore Titanic. Now look at this. Or better. Okay, already setting index is done, right? So okay, so this is how it looks like. If you remember earlier how it was like, 0, 1, 2, 3 is the index. Now passenger ID is the index. So what is the difference? I'll tell you. Let me load the data set again so that you'll get the difference. Okay, I'm reloading the data set again. I'm checking the head again. This is the index. So underscore reset index, sorry, index separately. I'm doing it again. df of Titanic dot head, df underscore Titanic dot head. Okay, now let me do df of Titanic of 1, let's say. dot lock. I'll tell you what the meaning of lock is. Lock is nothing but getting the first column. We'll discuss that in a while, but let me show you. If you observe df of Titanic of here, the first row, if you're talking about first element, print my first element here. If you're talking about it, it's printing the person with passenger ID 2. Why is it printing with passenger ID 2 as uh, first index? Because that's how it indexed it. Look at it, 0 and 1. So when you try to print df Titanic of 1, it's printing this particular row, right? But in the changed index, when I changed my index to passenger ID, then I asked for 1 and it printed me directly this passenger directly. That is the difference. See, the name here is Mr. Owen Harris. It's Johns Bradley. But in both cases, you printed first element only. Why? The index is changing. So always remember, Python by default index is 0, 1, 2, 3. But in case you want suppose later, when you go to real life, you may get some customer ID as index. You may need to reference everything with customer ID. So put it as customer ID's index. Then you should be able to do according to customer ID. So that's the use of setting one element as the index. And for also you can do reset index also sometimes. For example, df of Titanic dot reset underscore index, and it will come back to original. It will come back to original shape. So reset underscore index can get you to the default index, which is nothing but count with 0, 1, 2, 3. Set underscore index, you can put any column as index and start using it as a reference to print out the element. Okay. Now we'll talk with lock and ilock. Lock and ilock are nothing but how to access the columns and the rows in the data frame, or in short, you can slice the data set using lock and ilock statements. Okay. ilock is nothing but integer based indexing. Lock is location based indexing. In either case, you can select specified number of rows and specified number of columns. For example, df underscore Titanic dot ilock. If I want, let's say, first 6 rows, I can put 1 to 5, 0 to 5 rows, comma, and I want only second column, let's say, and only second column, then I can print it out like this. Or let's say I want only 0, 1, 2, 3, third column. Notice what has happened here. First 5 elements, 0 to 5, 0 included, 5 not included in terms of rows, and only third column. What is third column? 0, 1, 2, 3, name column. That's getting printed for you. I can have 3, 2, 6. Now what happens? Third column, fourth column, fifth column. 6 is not included. That gets printed here. So I'll put you. All the rows will have an index. Similarly, all the columns will also have index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When I said 3, 2, 6, that means third column, fourth column, and fifth column. Sixth is not included. Remember the same thing from list. That means this one. And what did I say? 0 to 5. This means 0th row, first row, second row, third row, and fourth row. So what you got print out was this particular element. So you can imagine a slicer or a knife with which you are cutting the data set. So generally we don't get the small data sets. In real, you get huge ones. So you might need to slice the data frame in a way you want. And this gives the flexibility, iLock. So remember, iLock is only called as integer based indexing. What do you mean by integer based indexing? Because Python by default, rows are indexed and columns are indexed with only integers. Whenever integer based indexing is there, only then you can print it out. For example, you cannot use the names of the columns in iLock. In iLock, you cannot put names of the columns or names of the rows, for example. No, rows are never named, only columns are named. But in iLock, you cannot use that because iLock only takes input as integer. In such cases, you can use .lock. Lock is position based indexing. That means here I'm not interested in integers. I'm only interested in position. Position is nothing but my name of the columns. Got it? I'll show you the example of lock also. Then you will be easily able to understand. df underscore Titanic dot lock. By the way, rows don't have names. Rows always have numbers. So in the case of rows, it will be always numbers. So index and position is the same. So I can put still 0 to, let's say 3. Whereas when you go for columns, columns have positions. So you have to pass position names. For example, survived, comma P class. I can pass a class survived, comma P class. This do head or I did not do it. Right? Now try the same thing with iLock. It will throw an error because iLock doesn't take names or positions. iLock always wants integers. Lock can take positions. Let's try if lock works here. If you pass positions. Doesn't work. Because lock only takes positions, iLock only takes indexes. Sorry, this is apply. Got it, right? Just putting it over here. iLock, and this doesn't work. And similarly, I am putting iLock and this doesn't work. So just try this kind of use case on African crisis data set. Try to print any number of rows, columns you want, somewhere between 700th row to 750th row for 3 columns or 4 columns. Try it out, everyone. Lock and I lock. If you want some reference code, it is there here. So all the iLock references are given here. I have shown several things. iLock, by the way, you need not always give rows and columns. You can only do rows also. 0th row, only second column, only one column, one row, a set of rows and a single column, a set of rows and a set of columns. The way you want to slice, you can slice it. All the rows and only few columns, all the columns and only few rows. Everything is possible with iLock. You remember this command, right? Column, start to end. And here you can use different starts and different ends.